Right, Alice Springs just hit 47 degrees, while Melbourne S sitting at 12. That S a 35 degrees spread across the country. And if you think that S extreme, wait until you see what S brewing for the weekend. Is your area about to cop severe thunderstorms, flooding, rain, or possibly both in the next 72 hours? Currently, the Bureau of Meteorology has severe weather warnings active for parts of Queensland, New South Wales and South Australia. We're talking about 3.2 million people potentially in the firing line here. Over the next 14 minutes, I'm going to break down exactly when these systems hit, which towns are most at risk, and there's one developing tropical low that S got me seriously concerned. But first, chuck your location in the comments right now, because tomorrow I'll be doing personalised forecasts for your specific area, and trust me, you all want to know what S headed your way. Let me give you the timing for the major centres. Sydney, storms likely Friday afternoon around 4 p.m, heaviest between 6 and 9 p.m. Melbourne, you are looking at a calmer run initially, but Saturday morning brings a cold front with gusty conditions. Brisbane and the Gold Coast, scattered storms Thursday night, but the main event arrives Friday evening. Adelaide copping at Friday arvo with potentially severe storms. Perth, you're actually sitting pretty with mostly clear skies through to Sunday. Hobart, bit of a mixed bag with showers Friday, clearing Saturday. Darwin, typical build-up conditions with afternoon storms daily, nothing unusual there. Now here's the thing that S making this forecast particularly tricky. We've got a rapidly developing low pressure system currently sitting off the New South Wales coast, and the models are showing some pretty significant disagreement about its track. Access, that S, our Australian model, is suggesting this low intensifies and moves south, which would bring heavy rain to the Illawarra and south coast. But the European model reckons it tracks more north-northwest, which completely changes the story for the Central Coast and even Sydney-esque northern beaches. This 100-kilometre difference in track means the difference between 50 millimetres of rain and 200 millimetres for some locations. Let me be specific about what we were seeing right now. Current sea surface temperatures off the coast are sitting around 23 to 24 degrees, which is about 2 degrees above average for this time of year. That warm water is basically fuel for any developing system. The low currently has a central pressure of 1,008 hectopascals, but the latest satellite imagery from about an hour ago shows it is starting to deepen. The Bureau S got a severe weather warning current for the Sydney metropolitan area, Illawarra and South Coast, with damaging winds possible late Friday. For you lot in Newcastle and the Hunter region, you rewrite on that uncertain zone. If the Access model verifies, you will see strong winds and heavy rain Friday night. If the European S right, you might dodge the worst of it. Wollongong and the South Coast, though, either way, you're re-getting significant rainfall. I am talking 100 to 150 mils possible, maybe more in elevated areas. Coffs Harbour up north, you are looking at isolated storms Thursday and Friday, nothing too organised at this stage. Inland New South Wales, completely different story. Dubbo, Wagga Wagga, you're actually looking at pretty decent conditions through the weekend. Bit of cloud, maybe a shower Friday, but nothing severe. The issue for you is more about the heat before the change. Wagga could see 38 degrees Thursday before a southerly drops you back to 26 Friday. Now let me talk about Queensland for a minute, because there's something developing up there that S got my attention. Around 11 minutes in, I'm going to explain why this tropical low near the Gulf could become a bigger story next week. But for now, let's focus on southeast Queensland. Brisbane, storms Thursday night are looking increasingly likely as a trough moves through. The timing is critical here because these could hit during evening peak hour. Current thinking is somewhere between 5 and 8 p.m. Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast, similar time frame. Toowoomba on the ranges, you'll probably see storms earlier, maybe from 3 p.m. onwards. Townsville and Cairns up in the far north, you are in your typical November pattern. Afternoon storms, nothing particularly severe forecast, though Townsville could see some gusty winds Friday with a stronger sea breeze. The real concern for North Queensland is what happens early next week, and I'll get to that. Let me swing across to South Australia. Adelaide Friday afternoon is when things get interesting for you. There is a cold front approaching from the west, and ahead of it, we were expecting severe thunderstorms to develop. The timing looks like somewhere between 2 and 7 p.m. Friday. Mount Gambier and the southeast, you'll see this earlier, probably from midday. Whyalla and Port Augusta up north, storms possible but less likely to be severe. The bigger issue for you is the heat Thursday. Port Augusta could crack 42 degrees. Victoria S got a more straightforward forecast. Melbourne, that cold front I mentioned arrives Saturday morning around 6 a.m. Ahead of it, Friday, Yuri looking at 28 degrees. Behind it, Saturday, you will struggle to make 18. Geelong, Ballarat, Bendigo, similar story. The winds on Saturday are the main concern. We could see gusts to 80 kilometres per hour across central and western Victoria. Shepparton in the northeast, you might see an isolated storm Friday afternoon, but the main change arrives Saturday. Hang on, let me check the latest model runs because there has been an update in the last hour. Right, so the Access R regional model has just come through and it's actually shifted the position of that coastal low slightly west compared to the earlier run. This brings Sydney more into play for heavier rainfall Friday night. We're now looking at possible totals of 80 to 120 mils for western suburbs, potentially more over the Blue Mountains. This is one of those situations where another 12 hours of model data is really going to help narrow down the specifics. Western Australia, you're in a completely different weather pattern. Perth, stunning conditions continuing. 28 Thursday, 30 Friday, 32 Saturday. The Fremantle doctor should keep coastal areas comfortable in the afternoons. Bunbury down south, similar story, though maybe a degree or two cooler up north. Broome, you are in the low to mid-30s with typical afternoon sea breezes. Geraldton, beautiful conditions, mid to high 20s. Kalgoorlie inland, you are looking at 36 to 38 degrees daily, pretty typical for November. Tasmania S getting that same cold front that hits Victoria just 12 hours later. Hobart, Saturday afternoon is when the winds really pick up. We could see gusts to 70 km an hour. Launceston and Devonport in the north expect showers Saturday evening. The good news is it clears out Sunday and you will back to pleasant conditions early next week. The Apple Isle S actually looking pretty good overall. Canberra, you're in an interesting position being inland. Thursday, you will hit 32 degrees with northwesterly winds ahead of the change. Friday, that southerly arrives around lunchtime, dropping you back to 22. Possible thunderstorm Friday morning as the change moves through. Nothing severe expected, but keep an eye out. Now, about that tropical low I mentioned earlier, this is developing in the Gulf of Carpentaria, and current analysis has it as a weak system with a central pressure around 1,004 hectopascals. Here, what S concerning, sea surface temperatures in the Gulf are running 29 to 30 degrees, which is very warm. The monsoon trough is also positioned right across the region. Both Access and the international models are showing this low intensifying over the next 4 to 5 days. If you are in the Northern Territory around Katherine, keep a close watch on this. The Bureau hasn't issued any warnings yet, but this has the potential to develop into a tropical cyclone early next week. The track is still highly uncertain. Some model runs take it west toward Darwin, others south toward the top end. Darwin itself, you were fine through the weekend, just typical build-up storms, but Monday and Tuesday could tell a different story. We'll have a much better idea tomorrow when the overnight model runs come through. I reckon I should mention the fire danger situation because it is relevant for several states. South Australia, total fire ban declared for several districts Thursday due to the heat, low humidity and northerly winds. Parts of inland New South Wales also looking at extreme fire danger Thursday. Victoria, fire danger ratings elevated Friday ahead of the change. If you're in bushfire prone areas, make sure you've got your plan sorted. This is serious stuff. Actually, let me clarify something about those rainfall totals I mentioned for Sydney earlier. When I say 80 to 120 mils, that's the current forecast range. But here's the thing. If this low intensifies more than expected and slows down, we could be looking at totals pushing 150 to 200 mils. That would trigger flash flooding concerns, particularly in urban areas. The next bomb update is due Thursday morning, and that should give us better clarity on the intensification rate. Back to Queensland for a sec because I want to talk about the heat. Inland areas Thursday are going to be brutal. We're re-talking about towns like Charleville, Roma, potentially hitting 43 to 45 degrees. That is dangerous heat, especially combined with low humidity. If you are working outdoors, you need to be taking this seriously. Heat kills more Australians than any other natural disaster. One thing that got me watching closely is the pressure gradient between that coastal low and the high pressure system over the Tasman. Currently, we've got about a 12 hectopascal difference over about 500 kilometres. If that tightens up, which some models suggest, we could see wind gusts along the coast hitting 90 to 100 kS an hour. That getting into damaging territory. The communities most at risk would be from Wollongong down to Batemans Bay. For you mob along the New South Wales south coast, Friday night into Saturday morning is peak concern time. Seas are forecast to build to 4 to 6 metres offshore, which is significant. If you've got a boat, make sure it is secure. Beach erosion is also likely with those big swells combining with high tides Saturday morning. Ulladulla, Narooma, Eden, you are all in the zone for potential impacts. There is one detail about this whole setup that's particularly unusual. We don't normally see coastal lows develop this rapidly in November. Typically, these are more of a winter phenomenon. The fact that we're re-getting this kind of development now, combined with those above average sea surface temperatures I mentioned, it's worth paying attention to. Climate patterns are shifting and we're re-seeing these less typical events occur more frequently. Let me swing back to the interior because while everyone is focused on the coastal action, there's some interesting weather happening in outback Australia. Alice Springs, as I mentioned at the start, 47 degrees today. Tomorrow, similar, maybe 48. But here's what happens. Saturday, a weak trough moves through. There's a slight chance of a thunderstorm and temperatures drop back to 38. When you get rain in Central Australia, even a small amount, it is significant. Some of the long-range models are hinting at a more active pattern developing for inland Australia in December, which would be welcome news for drought-affected areas. South Australian pastoral areas, similar story. You're re-cooking through Thursday and Friday, then the weekend brings slightly cooler conditions. Not cool, mind you, just less extreme. Coober Pedy, you are looking at 41 Thursday, 39 Friday, 36 Saturday. If you haven't chucked your location in the comments yet, do it now. Tomorrow's video is going to have much more refined timing and rainfall estimates once we get tonight's model runs. The uncertainty I've been talking about should reduce significantly by then. I genuinely want to help you prepare properly for whatever coming your way. The thing about forecasting is we are always balancing what we know with what we don't know. Right now, we know there is a significant weather system developing off the coast. We know severe thunderstorms are likely for parts of the southeast. We know there's a tropical low in the Gulf that bears watching. What we don't know yet is the precise track of that coastal low, the exact intensification rate, or where the heaviest rainfall will set up. This is why checking back tomorrow matters. By then, we'll have the overnight access runs, the latest European model, the GFS American model, all showing hopefully more agreement. If they converge on a solution, confidence goes up. If they were still spread out, well, that tells us something too. Let me give you the weekend outlook beyond Friday's system. Saturday, once that low moves away and the cold front pushes through, we're actually looking at pretty reasonable conditions for much of the southeast. Melbourne clears to sunny conditions Sunday. Sydney, if the rain clears as expected Saturday morning, Sunday looking partly cloudy, 23 degrees. Brisbane back to 29 and sunny. Adelaide, beautiful Sunday after Friday storms, 24 degrees. The Northern Australia story continues to evolve. That tropical low is the wild card. If it develops into a tropical cyclone, which is a genuine possibility, then next week is forecast for Queensland's Gulf country and the Northern Territory top end changes dramatically. Tropical cyclones bring destructive winds, heavy rainfall, storm surge if they cross the coast. We're not there yet, but it's on the radar. Christmas Island and the Cocos Islands, if anyone is watching from there, you are in a fairly typical pattern for November. weather. Scattered showers, 28 to 30 degrees daily. Norfolk Island, you are actually in line for some rough weather Friday as a front pushes through. Winds could gust to 70 kilometres per hour Friday night. For those wondering about the longer term pattern, we are currently in a neutral ENSO phase, so neither El Nino nor La Nina. The Indian Ocean dipole is also neutral. What this means is we don't to have those big climate drivers pushing us strongly in one direction. It makes the medium range forecast trickier because we're more susceptible to individual weather systems rather than a dominant pattern. Right, let me bring this together. Thursday, heat for inland areas, severe fire danger in places, isolated storms developing in Queensland. Friday, that is the main event day for the southeast, with the coastal low bringing heavy rain and strong winds to parts of New South Wales, severe thunderstorms for South Australia and possibly Victoria, heat continuing inland. Saturday, cold front clears the southeast, conditions improve, but watch that tropical low in the north. Sunday, generally better across the board for southern states. Northern Australia's story depends on that tropical development. The critical watch points are coastal New South Wales Friday night for heavy rain and damaging winds, South Australia Friday afternoon for severe thunderstorms, and the Gulf of Carpentaria early next week for possible tropical cyclone development. If there's one thing to remember from this forecast, it's that Friday is when multiple systems converge across the country. That doesn't happen every week. The timing might shift by a few hours as we get better data. The intensity could be stronger or weaker than currently forecast, but the overall pattern is pretty clear. Active weather is coming. Tomorrow's video will have much more specific detail once we've got another 24 hours of model runs and observations. The Bureau will update their warnings through Thursday, and I'll be incorporating all of that. I'll also have more info on that tropical low and whether cyclone formation is looking more or less likely. Really appreciate you watching through to the end. Tomorrow, Update will be around the same time. And honestly, it is going to be important. We should have much better clarity on that coastal low track, refined rainfall totals, and clearer timing for the thunderstorm outbreak. Get your location in the comments if you want specific info for your area. Stay safe out there, especially if you in fire-prone areas Thursday or in the path of those storms Friday. The weather is doing some interesting things, and we'll keep tracking it together.